guys, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new here. My name is Andrea.M. and today is just a quick little lead-in video to our Clarence Valley paranormal investigation that was held last Saturday. The location was at the Coutts Crossing Cemetery just outside South Grafton. And as always with a paranormal investigation, things don't run exactly smoothly. So I just want to talk about a few things that happened, and then I'm going to lead into the history of Coutts Crossing and the atrocities of the man that we were there to investigate, the settler Thomas Coutts. So we rocked up out there on Saturday afternoon. We had a nice complement of our team there. There was myself, there was Bianca and Rebecca. We also had Leslie, Kev and Jess. So there were 6 of us there for this investigation, and I'm not going to say it was actually wild, but we got a lot of really good responses. We got a lot of footage on the SLS camera. We got a lot of stills photography evidence as well. So that part all went well, but of course, as like connoisseurs of the paranormal will be aware if you watch a lot of these videos, like not just mine but other people's as well, they love to play with the equipment. So there is a portion of the video you're going to have to bear with us. It's actually filmed upside down. It doesn't last for long, so just be aware that that's coming up as you're watching, but it doesn't last for very long. My gimbal went nuts. I actually had to end up switching out from the gimbal to my stationary tripod for the remainder of the video because they wanted to play with it. They kept turning it off. It kept switching around, and yeah, it was just nuts, that part anyway. And then we also had a very special experience for Bianca. She actually sort of wandered off on her own. She had started out that she was doing some automatic writing, and that's wild as well. I'm not going to go into it. That was the wind. I don't have any spooks here. So I'm not going to go into it fully about the automatic writing. You'll see that on the video, but it does validate some of the other things that we picked up on. So there was that, and then she kind of went off on her own while the rest of us were investigating. And what happened with Bianca was she actually started to make contact with the spirit of an Aboriginal man who was about 35, and he kind of was making requests of Bianca, and what he wanted her to do was to go around to all the graves but 2 of the families that were out there, and it is a very, very small cemetery, as you'll see. And he was requesting for her to take like a rock or a stick or something like that was near each of these graves, and for her to make something in honor of the Aboriginal people. And as the story of Thomas Coutts unfolds, you will understand why. So she was wondering about doing that. She'd also made a beautiful bead and feather offering to leave for the Indigenous spirits at Coutts Crossing. And there was a whole video segment of Bianca explaining what was going on with the spirit who wanted her to collect stuff and how she was going to hang this beautiful offering on the tree. And it was also, it kind of said where the Indigenous people are actually interred at the cemetery. And guess what happened? The video lost all of its sound. So I've actually had to cut some of that out. I will put a little bit of it in here of Bianca just sort of walking around in that, but we had absolutely no sound for that portion of the video. And then when that segment finished, the sound came back as soon as we stopped talking about anything to do with the Indigenous spirits. And that is my door banging in the background. It's very windy here today, and it's actually a little bit cold, which is nice. Saturday was beautiful though. It was nearly like springtime again. So we had a really wonderful afternoon at Coutts Crossing on Saturday. Just trying to think if there were any other little glitches and hiccups. So it was mainly the gimbal just went nuts, and it does tend to track things as well, so it may have been tracking them. It was very interesting. We had a very still day, and then you'll see in one of the clips while Leslie is filling us in on some of the history of Thomas Coutts and Coutts Crossing that the wind starts to come up. So it was an interesting afternoon, and we did get a lot of stuff, but as always with an investigation of this sort, things do tend to go a little awry. I won't say it actually goes wrong, because whenever the spirits start mucking around with your equipment or they're making glitches and things happen, it's because they are trying to make contact. They are trying to validate their existence, that yes, they are here. And they did that so well. And I have to say that on the whole, they were very nice spirits out there. We did run into a couple of little darkish bits, but on the whole, it was a terrific investigation. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it. I just want you guys to enjoy the video. So that's about it. That's the main things I had to tell you. And then this weekend we are off and we are taking a road trip. So it is another investigation to another very historic location in this area. But as always, if you want to see where we're going next, you're going to have to keep watching, be subscribed, get those likes and shares happening, and a few comments would be appreciated as well. But as always, try to keep your comments as positive and as respectful to everybody involved as you can. We want to keep YouTube a nice, happy place where everybody feels safe. So just please always try to be respectful with your comments. Like, constructive criticism is welcome. Lively debates are welcome, but please always keep it respectful towards myself, my team, and each other, and to YouTube at large. So that's about all I needed to say about this video. Yeah, we had a few things go wrong, so you'll be aware, and just wanted to pop in the clips of what Bianca was doing. So we got photos of the beautiful offering that she left for the elders and for the spirits out there. The main video is actually an hour long, so it's a long one. And when you're trying to upload as well, if you're going sort of over the 30 to 40 minute mark, it does make uploads a little bit difficult. So it might have been a blessing in disguise, because the video would have just been too long. And that is also why I am doing this introductory video to lead into the main video, because it's just going to be too long if I popped it all in the one video. So without further ado, I'm going to leave this here, because if I keep talking, I'm going to drop spoilers and I don't want to do that. But what I will be leading into next is the history of Coutts Crossing, what happened out there, and the atrocities committed by, as we are calling him, the demon of Coutts Crossing, Thomas Coutts. So sit back, grab a snack, put your feet up. I'm going to tell you about Thomas Coutts, and then after that I will be uploading the main video for Clarence Valley Paranormal. And I do thank all of our supporters, fans and subscribers who love our Clarence Valley Paranormal videos. It has been a journey to actually even start up for this year. At the beginning of the year, we had heat waves, we had wild storms. I got very ill, Bianca got very ill, and things just had to be postponed because of that. But we're in autumn now, things are settling down, we're both feeling much better. I'm much better. I'm on my 5th day in a row without a flare-up. Have been able to eat a few of the forbidden foods without getting sick. Very, very small doses, however. But I am recovering from the histamine intolerance, and you will have heard me talk about that in previous videos. So yes, I am feeling better, and we can just get on back into life again. Bianca still has a small touch of the bronchitis, but she is also a lot better too. So we are all feeling happy, healthy, and ready to get back out there. So thank you once again, everybody. And thank you to all the subscribers who regularly chat with me and who are always so respectful and so encouraging to all of us. It really does make the YouTube experience that much nicer. And I do realize that what we do here is not everybody's cup of tea. So if we're not for you, that's okay. You don't have to subscribe. You don't have to watch us. But please, you don't have to be unpleasant. Either I have run into a little bit of unpleasantness here on YouTube lately, but I'm not going to go into that because it was insurmountable in comparison to the support and the positive comments and feedback that I get every time I post a video. And there are a lot of consistent subscribers who are also always complimentary, and they will also have a little chat with me. And if they know anything about a case I've presented or a location we're going to with Clarence Valley Paranormal, they'll have a chat to me about it, and I absolutely love that. So thank you to everybody who has actually had a bit of a chat with me or told me they've had experiences with one of the cases. It just makes it all so much more interesting, and I love to hear other people's stories. So also just want to let you know as well, if you check the description box, you will find there is an email. Maybe it is spooks. They're ringing my bells on my door. There is an email for Clarence Valley Paranormal. Email for Clarence Valley Paranormal that you can send your scary ghost stories to. I would like to start doing a scary story segment on my channel, so if there's anybody local or within Australia at this stage, I am going to go international in the future, but for now I'm sort of keeping it to Australia just for that little bit of difference. So if anybody has any scary stories that they would like to submit to hear them read here on the channel, I would love for you guys to do that. So just check that email in the description box below. You can send it to our Clarence Valley Paranormal website. Also, you can request for Clarence Valley Paranormal to come and investigate your home if you feel you are having problems there with an entity or strange occurrences. We are open to investigating homes and trying to help people out that way. And as somebody did ask us before, are we for real or are we just doing this to look cool? No, we're absolutely for real. As I've said before, Bianca and I have been clairvoyant since birth. We have been dealing with the paranormal our entire lives. I've also mentioned before that I did grow up in a house that was very similar to the Conjuring house. It was full of ghosts. There was one extremely nasty entity there, and he's still there to this day. So we have been dealing with this our entire lives, and also we are 110% for real. We do not fake anything on our videos. Everything you see is what goes on and what happens, and this is why I'm telling you when we have problems that occur with our equipment due to the energy that's there, because it just makes it more real, and it lets you know that yeah, we are for real and we do experience problems. You know, it's not a polished perfect video. It never is when you're dealing with the paranormal, because I do kind of relate to the paranormal as almost being like animals or weather or anything in nature. You cannot control it. It's going to do what it wants to do. So that's why we have problems, and that's why I tell you guys about it. So I'm going to end this off now, this section of this video, and then I'm going to lead into the history of Thomas Coutts, and then buckle up, get ready for our very first paranormal investigation of the year for Clarence Valley Paranormal, the Coutts Crossing Cemetery. So I'm going to let you guys go now, and I'm going to lead into the history of Coutts Crossing and the demon Thomas Coutts. Hi guys, welcome back, and we're going to go into the history of Thomas Coutts here. I'm hoping my microphone isn't picking up on my door to this room banging. It's very windy here today, so, and I live in an old house, so it's a little bit drafty. So if you can hear the occasional bump bump, that is my door rattling in the wind. Although it could be spooks, it's almost Samhain, so who knows. But anyway, let's just get into the history of Thomas Coutts and what he did at Coutts Crossing. That was just an absolute tragedy for that era. Also, if you don't know where Coutts Crossing is, it is a little community on the outskirts of South Grafton. And you can go to the cemetery, you can visit it, you can visit Coutts Crossing. It is an eerie kind of a place out there. Like, Bianca and I were there about a year ago. We were trying to sell some of our art products at a market there, and it was decidedly Deliverance County. It was very, very strange. The people had a strange energy. Yeah, it was just, we were just picking up on a lot of weirdness, but at the cemetery we felt totally comfortable. And it was a very magical place. And what I actually forgot to mention in the lead into this video, and I knew I'd forget, was we were actually right in the middle of a fairy ring at the cemetery as well, and we did pick up on a lot of fairies being around. There was, the mushrooms were all there in the circle. So it's a very magical place. Yeah, but you'll see all that in the video of what happened. So anyway, let's just get into the history of Coutts Crossing and Thomas Coutts. Thomas Coutts was born in December 1797 and lived until the 14th of January 1868. He was an Australian colonist who emigrated to Australia from Scotland during the 19th century, establishing various enterprises including whaling and pastoral farming businesses. He is best known for perpetrating, and this is why we were at Coutts Crossing, a mass poisoning of Aboriginal Australians on a property near the Clarence River in the Northern Rivers area of New South Wales, in which at least 23 people were killed, although we know now there was probably a lot more. Although Coutts was arrested for his crime, the judicial authorities never put the case to trial, and he was released after payment of bail. Coutts afterwards became a prosperous and respected colonial figure, and that is why the town of Coutts Crossing was named after him. But to get into a little bit of his history and where he originally came from, Thomas Coutts was originally born in Glenmuick, Aberdeenshire in Scotland on the 11th of December 1797. His parents were James and Elizabeth Coutts. He emigrated with two of his brothers to the colony of New South Wales around 1817. He settled in Sydney, and it appears that Coutts chose to follow a seafaring vocation. By the 1830s, he became a master mariner, taking the title of Captain Thomas Coutts. And when you hear Leslie speaking about the history, you will see how this all matches up to what I'm telling you now. So in 1832, Coutts and his brothers built a 90-ton brig on the banks of the Georges River. They named the vessel the Lady Leith, and Thomas Coutts was registered as both the owner and the master of the brig. Initially, the Lady Leith was utilised to transport cargo from Sydney to Hobart, but soon was trading sugar between Mauritius and Australia. However, it seems that this wasn't a profitable trade, as Coutts quickly switched to using his vessel as a whaler. From the mid-1830s until 1840, Coutts captained the Lady Leith in regular voyages to the whaling grounds off New Zealand, and he would then return with cargoes of sperm whale oil for sale in Sydney. During this period, Coutts married Maria Bloodworth in 1834 and bought a house in O'Connell Street in Sydney. And now we move on to the history of Coutts and the pastoral farming. So in early 1840, Coutts placed the Lady Leith up for sale and started to invest in pastoral farming. He and several other squatters took the opportunity of purchasing and driving herds of livestock to the Clarence River region, where they would occupy supposedly vacant Crown land. They were guided by an ex-convict in Richard Craig, who had previously lived with the Gambanya and Bundjalung people in the area after he escaped from the Moreton Bay penal settlement. Initially, Coutts set up a sheep station called Bald Hills in the New England region, which was at the start of the track down to the Clarence Valley. And if you guys aren't very familiar with the Clarence Valley, it is a massive river system. It actually starts in Queensland and winds its way all the way down almost to the New South Wales-Victoria border. So it is quite a very large river system, and it's quite a spread out region as well. Coutts Water, which was a part of his Bald Hills property, is a waterway that still bears his name and is now a popular trout fishing site. So he's got his name on a few things, this Coutts character. In 1840, Coutts, led by Richard Craig, bought around 5,000 head of sheep and around 800 cattle down the track from Bald Hills to the Clarence Valley. He laid claim to a region of open and lightly wooded country south of the river and named this leasehold Kangaroo Creek, and it is still named Kangaroo Creek to this day. The local Gambanya people killed Coutts' cattle and sheep and also murdered two of his stockmen and a boy named Jeremiah Sullivan, and this was reported to the Commissioner Oliver Fry, but nothing was done. So we are not actually told in the history, this gets really murky of why the Gambania people actually, if they did murder these people and kill all the animals, it's not said why they did it. So I'm kind of a little bit skeptical about that. I'm sure if they did do it, they had reasons. They could have been threatened. Their livestock could have been ruining their food bowl. There are regions here in the Clarence Valley you can't go because the local Bundjalung and Gambania still use them as a food bowl for themselves. So there are regions that you are not allowed to take anything from or to go to. And I think that's fair enough because they were here first. And, you know, I'm okay with that. I'm not sure what other people think about it, but yeah, I'm pretty much okay with that. So that now leads us into the atrocities that led us to want to investigate Coutts Crossing in the first place. And that would be what was known as the mass poisoning at Kangaroo Creek. And there was also poisonings further up the river as well at McPherson's Crossing. And that will be another location we're going to investigate. So it was in the late November of 1847, Coutts invited the Aboriginal people living around Kangaroo Creek to come to his homestead for the possibility of obtaining work. And he would even make friends with some of these people. Coutts had previously not allowed any groups of Aboriginal people near his homestead and was widely known to express the opinion that native people, and I don't agree with this at all, so don't come for me, I'm simply relaying the history, that native people deserved shooting. Nobody deserves shooting. Around 23 people accepted the offer and Coutts put them to work, weeding areas close to the homestead. After the work was completed, Coutts gave them a 10-pound bag of flour. Coutts was observed to have put the powdery contents of a paper sachet, believed to be arsenic, into the bag of flour before giving it to the group of the Gambania. The unsuspecting people took the bag of poisoned flour from Coutts and proceeded to a communal area in the hills between Kangaroo Creek and Tuwallum Creeks. Here they made a damper from the flour, and unfortunately quite a few of them consumed it. A couple of days later, several reports emerged of a large number of Aboriginal people becoming violently ill and dying in the hills behind Kangaroo Creek. The local commissioner for Crown Lands, Oliver Fry, and there is a street in Grafton named after him, it is Fry Street, heard these reports from both settlement and Indigenous sources and came to investigate. In January 1848, Fry visited the site and found the decomposing bodies of at least 23 Indigenous people. He collected evidence, including the remnants of the damper that remained, and immediately arrested and charged Coutts for the crime. Local magistrates concluded Coutts should stand trial for willful murder, and he was transported to Sydney to be tried at the Supreme Court. On the 23rd of February, Coutts appeared before Judge Alfred Stephen and was given bail on £1,000 worth of sureties. The case was delayed, and on the 10th of May 1848, the Attorney General John Plunkett decided not to proceed with the case. Plunkett did this even though he had a very strong suspicion of Coutts' guilt and was aware that justice was being entirely evaded by this decision. Coutts was subsequently discharged and returned to Kangaroo Creek. However, he would not stay in the region, and as you'll see me say on the video, I wonder why. So during his time at Sydney, one of Coutts' hut's keepers was at Kangaroo Creek, and he was actually killed by a local Gambania in an apparent revenge attack. Can you blame them? I honestly can't. Coutts quickly sold out of his Kangaroo Creek holdings in 1850, and he took up the Tuwallum property in the ranges about 100 kilometres to the north of Grafton. He also invested in a steamer named the Raven, which provided a river transport service between Brisbane and Ipswich. In 1851, Coutts looked to gain further property by taking a large flock of sheep further north to squat on lands near to Camboon on the Dawson River. European colonisation in this region was being resisted by the resident Yaman people, who killed several of the Coutts shepherds and speared to death Alexander Sandy Ross, who was a squatter accompanying Coutts in his attempt to set up a property. Due to the resistance of the Yemen, Coutts was forced to abandon the Dawson River and eventually returned to Tulum. A few years later, he bought the Allangowan property near Toowoomba. His wife died at this property in 1856, and the following year, Coutts sold the Raven. So we move on to his later life now. In 1859, Coutts decided to retire from the violent yet profitable frontier pastoral lifestyle and bought a mansion in the waterside Sydney suburb of Balmain, where he stayed until 1866. The residence he purchased was known as Balmoral House, and it still exists today under that name at 46 Waterview Street in Balmain. In 1866, Coutts decided to return to the land and purchase the North Toowoomba property near Warwick in the recently established colony of Queensland. By this stage, the area was hundreds of kilometres within the frontier of Europe colonisation, but Coutts still managed to meet his death at Toolburra soon after moving there. In January 1868, Coutts walked under a tree that was being felled on his property and was hit on the head by a large branch which killed him instantly. A large funeral was organised at Warwick, and he is buried in the Coutts family plot at the Warwick General Cemetery. So what's left of Thomas Coutts these days? So we move on to his family and legacy. Thomas Coutts had two notable brothers, one of which was Donald Coutts, who had accompanied Thomas throughout most of his pastoral pursuits. Donald took over the running of Tulum from Thomas and also took up the Rosewood leasehold near Ipswich. Donald, like Thomas, was involved in a number of major incidents of frontier violence with the Aboriginal people. Thomas's other brother was Reverend James Coutts, who was a minister at Parramatta and then Newcastle, and is known for the establishment of the Coutts Sailors' Home in the latter city. Thomas Coutts had 9 children with Maria Bloodworth, with many marrying into well-respected colonial families. Several landmarks are named after Thomas Coutts. This includes the town of Coutts Crossing near Grafton, the distinctive mountain outside Urbanville, also known as Coutts Crown, and Coutts Water Stream near Ebor. In 2018, a vote was taken by the residents of Coutts Crossing to rename their town to avoid being associated with, as is now known, the demon Thomas Coutts. The residents overwhelmingly decided to retain Coutts Crossing as the town's title, but there is a little bit more to it than that. They were lobbying pretty hard, actually, to have the name of the town changed because of the atrocities committed by Thomas Coutts, but it was actually a Gambanya Bunjalung lady who was a voice of reason for these people, and I agree with what she's saying. To lose the name of the town would be to lose the history, and people will forget what happened to the Gambanya at the hands of Thomas Coutts. So you will see a little bit more history that's added to this when you watch the video of the investigation that Leslie shares with us. And I won't go into that because I don't want to spoil it, but there is a little bit more. There's an absolute twist in the story that I'm not going to say here. You're going to have to wait and you're going to have to watch the video. So that is the history of Thomas Coutts and Coutts Crossing and the unfortunate and terrible massacre of the Gambanya people. It wasn't even just that the bodies were found decomposing by the river. A lot of them were actually thrown into the river, and they did drift by Grafton. And there was the massacre at McPherson's Crossing as well, which was the same result. The bodies would float down the river and they would float by the settlement of Grafton as well. So he wasn't a very nice man. That's why we've kind of nicknamed him the Demon of Coutts Crossing. And that's going to come into the twist. It'll play into that when you hear Leslie's retelling of the history briefly during the video. So that's it for the lead-in video. This is everything you need to know. So you need to watch this video first. I will put the link to this video on the actual investigation so you know to watch this first. It's important to lead you in so you understand why we're investigating. You understand the little glitches that happen, and you get to see just that little bit of Bianca's section that we unfortunately just had to cut because there was no sound. And we're all pretty much in agreement. It was the Gambania spirits did not want us to talk about what we were talking about. They didn't want it in the video, so we're just going to leave it there. That's it for the lead-in, and I will see you guys over on our Clarence Valley Paranormal video. As always, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Help us get to 1,000 subscribers so that we can start travelling further afield to places like Monte Cristo and to Port Arthur in Tasmania. Very haunted locations indeed. So thank you all once again for watching. And if you're going to be watching our paranormal video, and I hope you all are, grab snacks, grab a drink, sit back and enjoy. It's an hour-long video and you guys are going to love it. So I will see you over there, and thank you all again so much.